Hi, I'm Dr. Kevin Milo, and you're listening to the Physician Empowerment Podcast. At Physician Empowerment, we're focused on transforming the lives of Canadian physicians through education and finance, practice transformation, wellness, and leadership. After you've listened to today's episode, I encourage you to visit us at phys-empowerment.ca, that's PHYS, empowerment.ca, to learn more about the many resources we have to help you make that change in your own life, practice, and personal finances. Now on to today's episode.
So welcome everybody for this very unique episode and mini-series in Physician Empowerment Podcast. And this is a series of medical entrepreneurship. And we have interviewed different physicians over the last few months, right? And we're going to continue to interview medical professionals for the journey. So Emil, you come to Physician Empowerment, a couple of years ago?
Maybe. It was about 4 years ago.
4 years ago, okay.
Yeah, 4 years ago already.
Wow, wonderful.
Take, but yeah.
Yeah, and you've joined us at the Masterclass, and you are one of our pillars. And you have quite an interesting story. So can you share with us who you are, where you are, what you do?
So currently I'm a radiation oncologist. I have a practice here. I'm in Sherbrooke, Quebec. I've been here for the last 10, 11 years.
Right.
I do mostly academic radiation oncology with a bit of research, teaching medical students.
Right.
So that's the medical aspect of things. I'm originally from New Brunswick.
Oh, okay.
Did my training here in Sherbrooke, medical undergrad and medical school.
Right.
Then went to Queens at Kingston for radiation oncology.
Wow. So how many years have you been in practice?
11 now. Started in 2014.
Right on. And you have a family.
I have a family, 2 young ones, son and daughter. Oldest is 7 and the youngest is 3.
Right.
So still plenty on my plate.
Yeah. And your wife is a physician as well?
No, she's a chemist.
Oh, she's a chemist, right?
She works for Health Canada.
Oh, for Health Canada. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So very busy time, very busy time.
Yes.
And as if you're not busy enough, you're doing something outside of medicine. Tell us about that.
So other than practicing medicine, I run a small kind of medical pocketbook publishing company, like digital publishing company.
Right.
So it's essentially a medical app business that that I've been running for last about 13 years. So I started back in residency.
Right. Wow.
We started publishing pocketbooks. The first one I wrote myself.
Wow.
It's called MD on Call. It's something that lots of physicians are probably familiar with. It's quite popular, especially in Canada, but around the world as well. So that did great.
So that was like, I think we talked about this previously. When I went to residency 30-some years ago, there was the Washington manual, your stuff in your pocket.
So it's kind of like a condensed Washington. It's more, it's lighter than the Washington manual, but it's more geared towards real like patient management. While the ideal customer is the first year resident, like PGY1,
right.
Going through off service rotations, like cross covering on call overnight, things like that. So that's the main kind of focus of that kind of pocketbook.
Wow.
But it started out as a small like medical app, and now we've kind of branched over to more of a kind of publishing, to the publishing aspect of it. So we have a publishing platform where authors can come themselves and create their own pocketbooks. And we published as well like a few other pocketbooks for different authors or people around the world.
So are these all medical people?
So far, yes.
Right on.
Because that's what I know best, right?
Right. So these are physicians all over the world with different kinds of specialties, right?
Yeah.
And they have a passion to publish their knowledge.
Yeah.
In a pocketbook size, I guess. So are these true books or just digital?
Just digital.
Right. Nobody shoves that in the pocket anymore.
No. Just
everybody's got a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so super. So how's it turning out now, this side hustle of yours?
It's still growing. There are lots of physicians that have stuff to share and they have books in their minds and they're just waiting to be able to kind of put it on out there. That aspect is still growing. We're still working with new authors coming up with, we have some like a dermatology pocketbook coming up.
Wow. Yeah.
So, useful stuff. That's kind of what I'm usually focused on, like useful medical content. So the business aspect of it is still growing because there's more than enough room for more medical information, and especially like gears toward practicing physicians or at least learners.
Right.
But
So if our audience, anybody wanted to publish something, they should really give you a shout.
exactly, yeah, I'll be
Wow.
more than hoping to to connect.
That's a good plug for you and good for everybody else, right? So I believe this is a good platform for everybody to empower each other, right?
Yep.
So why is this side hustle meaningful for you, for your overall wellness and happiness?
Kind of gives room for creativity.
Creativity.
Yeah,
Wow, interesting.
it's something I always thought was kind of lacking.
Mm-hmm.
At least I remember back in medical school, and especially when I started residency, I kind of was looking for a way to, I don't know, express creativity. Kind of sounds funny, but it really comes down to that, right? I'm not really an artist per se, but
No, you
but
didn't have to
but
be.
but but it's a way of doing something other than medicine. And I've always had this kind of entrepreneur kind of way of thinking about things. So
Right.
it was kind of a nice way of expressing that.
Yeah. So interesting you talk about creativity because we just came back from Cancun for our Health and Wealth Summit. And
Mm,
we have a talk about creativity and health and wealth. How it's
yeah.
linked to health and wealth. And so this is really a timely illustration of that.
Hmm.
And then, so how do you balance business, the medical practice, business, academia, research, maybe, and your wife has research, and then you got two young kids. How do you balance your life?
You don't.
You don't. I love it. I love it.
No, but I try my best though. Like, I really try hard to spend good quality time with my family. I think family is number one,
Mm-hmm.
on top of the pyramid. Number two, I would say my health, but I don't think both can be, they're pretty much both on top because I don't think you can be present and a good, family or a dad without being healthy yourself. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to prioritize those two things. Business is at pretty much the same level as my medical practice, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It comes after the family and health. At least I try my best to do that and work on the business part of things, especially after hours, like, a few hours before going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not always required to work like, 7 days a week but I keep an eye on things most of the days still. I wouldn't say like it's a optimal. I wouldn't say it's optimal, but it's been working out well for over the last few years, especially with the kids now.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I could spend a lot more time on.
Yes, of course. Now, so with this time management thing, do you delegate things out because you only got so many hours a week, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I have a good team. I work with a team. They're not in Canada, but they do great work. But I try to delegate, but it's not easy. And
Mm,
people come and go and they leave.
of
So
course,
you
yes.
end up doing the work twice and
Yeah.
it can be difficult. So right now with the way things are, it's reasonable. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to delegate much. And with AI coming in, I kind of transfer over stuff to some of
Right.
AI workflows.
Yeah. So you also just pointed out you have a team and they're not in Canada,
Yeah.
right? So two things. One is you need a team. To be is they don't have to be local, right? With
No, no,
globalization,
it's all around the world now.
right? Yeah. So then you kind of pay them, right? And then they're
Yep.
in different time clock, anyways, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that's and with AI, right? So how does AI help your business?
Right now, like really like hands-on, it's mostly for mainly for customer support.
Mhm.
So you can kind of pre-specify, with the certain database that I have of different cases. just throw it out to the AI and it spits out a response for different issues clients may have. So that's the number one thing right now that I'm using it for. And translation. So many of the stuff
Translation.
I do is in French,
Oh, okay,
but
yeah.
but some of it is bilingual, French
Mhm.
English or French German. Uh,
German. Wow.
and for translation, different AI tools are amazing for that.
Right.
It's really game changing
Wow.
compared to the like old ways of doing translation stuff.
Right.
Um,
So
so
if one of our audience, just let's say pick me, want to write a book, right? How would you coach them? Where did they start and how they overcome their obstacles?
the way I coach different authors really revolves around telling them and making them know what people are really looking for in that kind of format of medical text.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is what we do is kind of totally different than, let's say, up to date, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you for our physician colleagues,
Yes.
most
Yeah.
people know up to date, right? But
Yeah.
but it tends to be long text.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a while to get through the information so that you can reach like something that's clinically useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and that's what I coach them, like what people want to know right now when they're at the bedside and they have to make a decision, and
Mm-hmm.
not like learn about, the intricacies of that specific gene that's encoding for a protein of some sort, right? So
Right.
they want to get stuff done, and
Mm-hmm.
and I coach the different authors, how to get there. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because some people have they're subspecialists and they've been within their own tiny field
Very
for
esoteric.
for many years, right? They
Yeah.
don't know how to get back to the basics. So
Right.
that's what I usually do,
Right.
and it's been working out quite well.
So interesting. So part of the job is not just publishing, you're actually coaching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Right on. So share some of the joys, wins, and high moments of this business.
The joys comes from most of the joy I would say come from a few years ago, when kind of we started. It was an interesting moment to be an app publisher.
Mm,
Nowadays it's kind of slowed down a bit,
mm,
but if people recall back to like the 2010-ish
mhm,
years, people were getting rich with, say, like Flappy Bird apps and things like that. That's from a long time ago,
mhm,
but there was a lot of hype around
mhm.
apps in general,
Right.
and I was kind of part of that back then.
Okay.
So it was all exciting,
Mhm.
and one of the thing I recall was that I was away on a medical conference in at some point. It was down south actually, and when I came back, I had received an email, but that was back in the day when we didn't have access to the internet when we were down south, right? So I
Mhm.
came back and turned on my phone and got an email from Apple saying that the app MD on Call had been chosen to be featured on the App Store. Then I
Wow.
looked at my sales report and it
Mm,
was like through the roof, like all around the world. It was front of the App Store, on the App Store
wow.
page.
Mhm,
And then I was like, wow, it's a good feeling, but it's
mhm,
also crazy when looking back at the sale page,
mhm, mhm.
at the revenue page for
Right.
those few days. uh,
Yes.
it was a good feeling, let's put it that
About
way.
that, with that, you look at the numbers and say, hey, I can quit medicine today,
Well,
right?
I knew it wouldn't last, but if it did, I would have been able to quit medicine.
Well, but that may not be your goal, right? So
No, exactly. But it was still quite exciting.
very exciting. Yeah.
Nowadays, it's more a lower profile, I would say.
Yes. Okay. And the flip side, how about some low points, snags, setbacks, some
Yeah.
whoopsie daisies?
Yeah. I'd say the main, the lower parts of that is persevering when you don't feel like doing it.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't feel like gathering the paperwork to send to the accountant, doing the filings and all those things when you have plenty of other things on your plate. So that's one thing.
Mhm,
Another thing as well is, people leaving the boat.
mhm, mhm,
I've had partners and I've had good kind of contractors leaving.
mhm,
And you have to find, some more people to take over, and it's always hard to find competent
mhm,
people
mhm.
and handing over some of the tasks. So I would say that both those things are the main, major drawbacks.
Right. Would there be some mishaps that were so huge that it shook you and make you think, well, should I quit this? Have that ever happened?
Not at this point. I'd say that the mistakes, maybe some of the mistakes I made, would have made me a few more, $1,000.
Mhm,
But other than that, there hasn't been anything, at least yet, knock on wood, but
mhm.
that would make me really double guess everything.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, and thank you for sharing those parts. Those are really intimate parts, right? And the reason we need to talk about these is because this is really intrinsic to any entrepreneurs,
Yep.
right? Any business people, even medical practice, right? Or if you run a department, right? Or you run a faculty, same thing, right? People come, people go. There are always a lot of problems, issues, and mishaps, right? Okay, so how has this venture impacted your family? Right, with your very busy family.
I try to make it so that it doesn't really impact them. I don't think they really know about that. Uh, well, they're young still, like the kids. As far as my wife, I mean, I usually don't have to spend a lot of time right now on that aspect of things. So as far as time is concerned, it's reasonable. I don't know. She may have a different take on that, but I don't think it's had a huge impact on the family so far.
Yeah, so
It would have been different a few years ago if I would have had the kids, back when we were kind of growing and creating the first few apps. That was different, but now it's
right, right, yeah. So part of it was two interesting point. One is the secret life of dad, right? They thought dad actually have those other things. And
yeah.
second is at our conferences we make it spousal friendly. We're now doing more and more of that. And once we interview the spouses, we get the other side of the story.
Exactly.
Okay, really, really good. So where do you think this your venture is going to become in, say, 5 to 10 years?
That's a really interesting question because I really don't know. I think right now in that kind of specific field, AI is coming in like a tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to change a lot of what we do and how we do things.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to impact the kind of medical publishing kind of aspect of what I do.
Right.
Going to impact how we do things,
Mm-hmm.
what tools we use.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be different. The next 5 years are for sure going to be different than the previous 10. Things are changing so fast that I think it's going to revolve around, how we're going to adapt to that revolution, how quickly it's going to materialize as far as, taking or changing the way we practice medicine and the
Yes.
way we publish, content. So,
Right.
so it's going to be an interesting next 5 years for sure.
So give you yeah, of course nobody have the crystal ball. So my son is a musician and he's a music student. And
Yeah.
one of his prof in this course called videography. And the prof said that music is something over time, right? Not over space. Right. And so his colleagues is still publishing papers on paper when music is not on paper. So he actually asked everybody to do videos to hand in their paper. So this is
Mm-hmm.
changing what do you mean by
Yep.
publishing paper,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so the world's changing, right? Now, do you
Yep.
see that your business would take off to a point that you can really make medicine optional for your income.
Maybe,
Hmm.
maybe. Medicine is still, lucrative.
Hmm.
Good field to be in. So it
Hmm.
takes, a significant amount of cash flow to replace that. But I would think that it's not impossible. It
Hmm.
wouldn't be impossible.
Right. I think for all of us who are medical entrepreneurs, right, or you have a main profession, you have a sideline business, you always think about that, right? But at
Yeah.
least if you have a secondary source of income,
Yeah,
it takes some pressure off, especially
it,
well,
it really does.
when the
Yeah.
provincial authority for us, right, pushing down, squeezing
Hmm.
people out, and you're
Yeah.
just up to here, right? Or
Yeah.
your
We're
department
especially
head is
used
down
to
your neck.
we're used to that in Quebec, and the quality of the practice right now is going downhill so fast that it's good to
Yeah,
have something else, and it's both, as a way of changing your mind from the
right.
grunt work, but also as a kind of a light shining on on top of everything that's going on right now in the healthcare system. At least think
Yes.
about
Yeah. Here's a good saying. If you have hope, you can cope.
it. Exactly. Yeah.
Right on. So do you have any other non-medical aspirations?
No, I think well, as far as businessy aspects of things, and no, that's pretty much it. I think that's more than enough. With the research and the medical students, and I mean, I have enough on my plate. Uh,
Lots.
but yeah, I think it's more than enough for now.
Right on. So what would the present day you go back to your fresh grad days? What would you tell your past you from the graduation day about on medical entrepreneurship?
Still do it. It's worthwhile. It's good. It's some work, but
Mhm.
it comes with so many interesting perks that it's worthwhile.
Right on. And what would you tell the audience who are thinking about doing something else other than medicine?
It's doable. I would say that it's doable. It's not for everyone for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as I said before, medicine is just doing medicine is enough to pay many of the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, have a wonderful life doing something else that's not related to making money or having anything to do with a side hustle or anything. You can do sports, you can do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're into that kind of mindset as to being an entrepreneur, then it can be quite fulfilling.
Yeah, and I totally echo with you, Emil, because at the end of the day, we go into helping profession, right? In medicine, medical practice, we in the helping profession, we want to help people, right? With our
Yeah.
knowledge and skills. And when you do entrepreneurship, do a side gig, whatever you call that, it creates a new entity, a new venture, and you bless people in a different way, right? For
Mm.
you now bless physicians, right? Who
Yeah.
wanted to publish, share their knowledge, and you bless gazillion, uncountable amount of people that would read that kind of information and impact their life and their
Yeah.
patient's life, right? So when you think about that impact, the legacy that you created is way, way beyond the impact of one physician in one medical practice. And this applies to any other disciplines, not just medicine, right?
The scaling that's possible with a business is very different than what we can do in medicine, for sure.
Exactly. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, so the last question I want to ask you is, you've joined Masterclass for 4 years. So
Yeah.
what have you learned from Masterclass and how do you think they might have impacted your entrepreneurial journey?
I would say I learned to keep an open mind
Mm-hmm.
on many, many topics. I
Mm-hmm.
always kind of want to keep an open mind,
Mm-hmm.
but if, the classes, they really help me kind of put that into practice. Different types of, we talk a lot about investments
Mm-hmm.
and taxes and things like that. But so
Mm-hmm.
so it helped me. Many of the topics I knew at least to some extent, but kind of presenting it in a different way.
Right.
The inspiration that comes with that,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I kind of took the most out of it.
Right on. Okay, well, that's good. That's our aim, right? Our aim with all our events, be it the masterclass, the podcast, and the retreats, right? We always want to empower people to think more, right? Ask
Yep,
more questions to the professionals and add to their knowledge base. And the more questions we ask, the better off it is for us.
exactly. And I think it's been achieved. I think you're
Yeah.
doing a
Okay.
good job.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and really thank you for being with us all these years. You've added value, and especially this episode. I think this is such a fun episode to have, and I think it would create an echo, right? It's like we want to do this medical entrepreneurship series as a musical note and create a resonance, right? You want to resonate, have people resonate in their mind. Okay, yeah, maybe this residency dream that I have, or as a childhood dream, doing something else, right? I've gone to med school, and I wonder if I could do something else, and like you say, hey, you can do it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you, Marc-Emile, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Physician Empowerment Podcast. If you're ready to take those next steps in transforming your practice, finances, or personal well-being, then come and join us at phys-empowerment.ca, PHYS empowerment.ca, to learn more about how we can help. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd really appreciate it if you would share our podcast with a colleague or friend, and head over to Apple Podcasts to give us a 5-star rating and review. If you've got feedback, questions, or suggestions for future episode topics, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to join us and be interviewed and share some of your story, we'd absolutely love that as well. Please send me an email at kmilo@phys-empowerment.ca. Thank you again for listening. Bye.